President Cyril Ramaphosa is set to address the nation on developments in South Africa's response to the COVID-19 pandemic tonight. Some sectors of the economy, including the alcohol industry, are hoping that Ramaphosa will relax regulations in a move aimed at boosting the country's economy. Joining us now is SACP spokesperson Dr. Mashilo and Cosatu Parliamentary coordinator Matthew Parks. Good evening to you both, and thank you so much for your time tonight. I'll begin with you, Matthew. Your expectations ahead of the President's address?
I think basically four things. I mean, we would expect the President to give us an update about the measures to restore law and order to Gauteng and KZN. I think we'd also hope to see some easing of the economic restrictions on the economy right now to inject some life into companies to help save jobs and so forth. We would also want to hear progress and efforts to ramp up the vaccine rollout campaign, which has been getting positive momentum. But I think most critically would be to unveil a disaster relief package to give assistance to workers who have lost wages and jobs, to help rebuild these companies and communities, and to help get the economy back on its feet after the devastating violence in KZN and Gauteng over the past 2 weeks.
And for you, Alex?
We are in a very difficult situation. The unemployment levels in the country are at their highest. Poverty is also a very serious problem, and the level of inequality remains stubborn. At the same time, we are fighting an invisible enemy here, a pandemic that is ravaging life. We are losing lives every single day. Also, we have seen towards the end of this week, the rate of infections has gone down a little bit. At the same time, as Matthew has said, the counter-revolutionary offensive that was launched on the week of the 8th of July has caused a severe impact on the economy. So we
All right, let's move to Matthew now as we try to re-establish a better connection then with Alex. Matthew, one of the things that the health sector is really crying about here is that when it comes to the easing of lockdown regulations, if it's done very poorly and quickly, it may hurt us in the long run and also cripple the healthcare system.
No, we would agree with that, and that's something that our health workers, our nurses, our doctors, other health professionals have been raising. So yes, we think there is some space with the decreasing levels of infections and so forth to ease some of the restrictions of the economy, but we shouldn't be reckless about it. We are still with the virus. A fourth wave is anticipated by experts for November. So yes, let's ease some of the restrictions to get some lifeline into restaurants, into other industries which are quite heavily restricted. But equally, we need to maintain the other measures, the wearing of masks, social distancing, sanitizing, the reduction in gatherings, etc., because those don't play a key role in the economy, yet they are huge super spreaders if we don't tackle them. So I think for us, it's those two issues. But equally, there's been progress on the vaccine front. We're now vaccinating over 250,000 people Monday to Friday. We need to increase that to over 300, if ideally even 350,000 a day. And also we need to look at how can we ramp out the rollout of vaccines over the weekends. Because you can maintain your health and safety measures for so long, those are interim measures. But the real solution is to get the country vaccinated as quickly as possible so that we can all re-emerge, the economy can re-emerge safely, and to do so responsibly as well.
And Alex, when there are calls for the government to ensure that economic activity resumes, one can then not ignore the impact that the recent unrest would have on the economy, even for a long time to come.
The impact of the recent unrest will be felt in the economy for a long time to come. I'm telling you, especially in those sectors of our economy that depend on foreign direct investment. Some of the multinational corporations investing in those sectors, we have seen at least one of them, and which is key, employing thousands of workers, saying they are beginning to rethink their future in South Africa. And by the way, I'm not talking about one company only, because if you look at the production processes at that company, and the products that company produces, depend on supplies from thousands of suppliers in KwaZulu-Natal province, in Gauteng, in the areas of Roslyn, as well as Silverton. So we really hope that this return to normality that we have started to see will be supported by the measures that the President will announce, and that what happened will not be allowed to be repeated at all, because once that is repeated, we are going to experience more problems. Believe you me, I come from the automotive industry, a highly globalized industry in which production takes place in tightly globally integrated production networks. And as a worker in that industry, I know what would happen, because we have seen in some countries in the past, like Thailand and so on, instability almost crippled that industry and elsewhere. It is going to be very important that we strengthen our national security, protect the economy, protect the jobs of the workers. Some people who have been mobilizing behind the nonsense that happened attack the so-called white monopoly capital without paying attention to the devastation that they have caused on the workers who are now unemployed. Other workers are on temporary layoff and others are on short time. Their families are having no income at the moment. It is just a disaster, a hardship imposed on.
All right, let's move to Matthew quickly. Matthew, as we speak tonight, there are calls then from some sectors that the President needs to announce a reshuffling of his cabinet, given how the security cluster has handled this particular unrest. And also you have the liquor industry, that the liquor industry is complaining about Minister Ibrahim Patel. Should he heed this call and reshuffle his cabinet once and for all?
Look, any president has the right and obligation to review the performance of his ministers. The president has signed performance contracts with the different ministers, and he should hold them account when they have not met their targets. Definitely there will need to be a reassessment of what went wrong in the security institutions in the build-up to this violence. There should be accountability. There must always be accountability. I think across the board. That's something I think that needs to be rebuilt in the government. It's been broken over many, many years, over the past decade in particular, where ministers were allowed to get away with not doing their job, often get away with citizens to sort of corruption and so forth. With regards to Minister Ibrahim Patel, we wouldn't agree with that. We think that this minister has actually done very well. He has led 15 industrial sector master plans with business and labor to rebuild the economy. He's led our campaigns on our local procurement to buy local goods. And we're seeing many of the green shoots of his performance over the years, from agriculture to poultry to auto manufacturing, etc. We don't agree with the issue of personalizing the liquor ban, because that's a collective decision of cabinet, premised by the overwhelming of our healthcare institutions. Our nurses and doctors have been forced often to choose which patients to save, which to allow to die, because we all know we have a serious problem of alcohol abuse in this country. Alcohol abuse is linked to domestic violence, to road accidents, to drunken pedestrians, etc. And it overwhelms our emergency rooms in our hospitals. So that's why the government has been forced at times, very painfully, to ban liquor, because you cannot force doctors and nurses to choose who to allow to live and who to allow to die. We cannot be allowing nurses to treat patients in parking lots. And we need to have that conversation, but I think to personalize it to one minister is not helpful, because we need to look at the real solutions to saving the liquor industry, providing relief to the workers in the liquor value chain, easing the pressures on the hospitals, but also as consumers. It's fine to drink, but not to drink excessively, not to beat your wife or to get into a car.
And Alex, very briefly, as we wrap up this conversation in just a few seconds, some say that the President has shown that he's not fit for purpose, especially when you look at how he handled the recent unrest. What do you say to that?
There will always be people who believe that the President is not fit for purpose. The starting point of that argument is that in the first place, many of those who are saying that have not supported either the President or the African National Congress. So they are continuing with their politics of seeking access to power, saying things that will please people, but which are not implemented. That is just populism. We experience a very difficult situation in the country, which requires all of us to think again going forward to learn from what has happened on how we can best prevent it. For sure, all of us, we have to look back, including the president has to look back, the entire cabinet has to look back and say what measures can be adopted to prevent what happened from occurring again.
All right.
Until, yes, sure.
All right. Thank you so much to you both for your time. That was Matthew Parks from Cosatu and Dr. Alex Mashilo from the South African Communist Party.